All right, for further reaction, let's now welcome in studio the CEO of the National Black Business Caucus, Mr. Volchere Kgekwane. Volchere, great having you with us. Good evening. Welcome to the Full View.
Good evening and thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. So let's first talk about your position now on the Spaza Shop registration process. You've heard all the stories as well as the reasons some South Africans or those that want to be in the industry are actually hesitant to go and register.
Yes, our position as a NBBC is that the registration process has been a bit of a difficult thing for people to navigate. Our South African business, because remember this industry has got a lot of foreign-owned shops,
yes,
as well as some
local
South African
owned, yes,
locally owned. The locally owned guys are struggling to register because, as the MEC said, there are some issues there. So the government wants them to register, but when our constituency tries to register, there are a number of other requirements that they do not have, that previously they are previously disadvantaged because of the history of the country.
Mm-hmm.
So
what are some of those requirements, Volchere?
Well, for one, to rezone your business requires you to have a title deed for that business.
True.
You cannot rezone what you do not own.
Mm-hmm.
And if your business is in a residential area, it becomes problematic because then it's not on commercial land. So you
True.
need to change that township property or that rural property into a commercial space.
Mm-hmm.
And on tribal land, that's bordering on impossible because you never really own tribal land. You sit there.
You get allocated a stand.
Allocated by the king, right? So in townships, there's a struggle when it comes to ownership of township. You still got townships that are paying what's called rent in their RDPs, and the rent that it's from the old days with the apartheid regime. Some are still paying rent. That's why a lot of the strikes and uprisings have been happening around title deeds and the rent, paying rent on a property that's third generation in.
Yeah.
So I think we need to bring up our level of admin when it comes to who owns what and how people own and how we deal with special circumstances. Because a purely commercial rezone is not going to work for us. We need to have a developmental way of dealing with that. And MBBC is willing to work with the MEC to assist our constituency to be able to register.
Mm-hmm. Have you raised these matters with the MEC? How far are some of your deliberations in this regard pertaining to this red tape that you've encountered?
Yes, so that's one of the red tapes. There's a few others which we can get into if we have time. Our president, NBBC president, Dr. Danisa Baloyi, together with Mr. Keith Thabo, who is the president of NAMEC, also a BBC organization, Black Business Council organization. They've engineered and led the development of an organization called ABOSA, right? And ABOSA has been doing a lot of work to try and get people registered.
Yes.
They have, through the NBBC and ABOSA, there has been engagements with the office of the MEC.
Yes.
And we are trying to assist. It's not an easy thing, even for the MEC, for government. There's a lot of backlog that needs to be done before we can actually reach the goals that we want to reach for our people. And
with the deadline of the 28th of February, do you think all these issues would have been addressed?
I doubt it. I think we'll have another extension, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Look, the start of the registration is good because it gives us a starting point to work on. But the reality is that it cannot be done in those short times. I mean, if you take a commercial entity trying to rezone a property right now, let's say it's farmland and they want to turn it into commercial land, you cannot do that in 28 days. You cannot do it in 3 months. You cannot do it in a year. It usually takes 1.5 years to 2 years to get that process done, depending on a number of different things through town planning and what the land is allocated for initially. And there's a lot of things that municipalities go through to justify or qualify a change of of zoning. So it's not a simple thing that you can do in 28 days.
True. So, Volchere, I mean, let's look at the fact that Maile had mentioned that over 1 billion had been spent on the township economy, but it's still unclear which specific businesses. Are you a benefactor of some of these? Are you able to tell us if actually this 1 billion went to the proper people or the people that actually needed to be assisted in terms of promoting as well as sustaining the local economy?
$1 billion in black business in townships. I've been trying to get a hold of the MEC on that regard so that we can be shown which businesses. We do not know of anyone in our constituency who received even 10% of that money. I mean, that's 1,000 millions. We've got, what, 9 townships, prominent townships in the province. You know, that's almost 100 million to each township. A little bit more if you're dividing it by 9. And if I go into Soshanguve to our constituency, Soweto, Tembisa, Whiteville, Atteridgeville.
The 1 billion looks like...
We cannot see 100 million anywhere in that community. So we'd like to know, maybe it did not go direct to the businesses, maybe there was another way that they did it, but none of my constituency can attest to having even 10 million of that money. So I'd like to know where that money was spent and how. And that could maybe shed some light on it for us.
Thank you so much, Volchere. Thank you. Unfortunately, we are out of time, and hopefully we will be getting some of those answers that you also are seeking some clarity on. That is Mr. Volchere Kgekwane there. He's the CEO of the National Black Business Caucus on, of course, the extension there of the registration and some issues that have been raised pertaining to the registration process of Spaza Shops.